My name's Alex. I'm 26. And until recently, I thought the worst thing about my family was their inability to shut up. You know, the type everyone's got an opinion, everyone's got a glass of wine, and everyone's a little too comfortable pointing out your flaws under the guise of we're just trying to help. But help never felt like what they were doing. I used to think it was just noise, background static I had to live with. But this story? This is when the static turned into fire. It was the week before my birthday, and I didn't want to celebrate. No fake smiles, no awkward dinners, no forced enthusiasm over whatever half-hearted card my mom picked up from the gas station 5 minutes before arriving. I'd been laid off 2 months ago. Money was tight. Morale was worse. I was eating more pasta than protein, scrolling job boards like they were dating apps. Swipe, apply, ghosted. Repeat. So when my cousin Lila texted me Friday morning saying, "Hey, dinner tonight. Fam got a table for your birthday," I'll admit I hesitated. But I like Lila. She's the only one who doesn't talk to me like I'm an underachieving dog. She moved out at 19, got her own life, and doesn't need family approval to breathe. If she was going to be there, maybe it wouldn't be a complete disaster. Spoiler, it was worse. I showed up in black jeans and my best shirt, nothing fancy, just something that didn't scream unemployed. The restaurant was one of those fake fancy Italian chains where the breadsticks are great and the vibe is all pretend Ivy and Sinatra. They were already seated when I arrived. Long table, end seat. Mom and Dad front and center. My sister Kenzie was glued to her phone like it had life-saving intel. My Uncle Mark was halfway through a loud story about firing someone for crying too much. Classic Mark. I took the empty seat next to Lila, who greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The small talk started. Lila got a promotion round of applause. My younger cousin Jacob got into med school, standing ovation. Then came the obligatory turn my life into a joke portion of the evening. So, Mom started twisting her fork in the salad like it had wronged her. Any job leads? Or still soul-searching? Before I could answer, Kenzie chimed in. "I saw this ad online that said, 'Get paid to pet dogs.' Maybe that's more your speed." Laughter. Not polite. Real. I smiled. Thin. Measured. "Still looking," I said. "Couple interviews last week." "You're being too picky," Mom said, not even pretending to be interested. "A job's a job." I nodded like I was agreeing, even though every muscle in my face was fighting to stay neutral. Uncle Mark jumped in. "Back in my day, I worked at a slaughterhouse for a year. Came home covered in guts. Didn't hear me whining." "You probably did," I wanted to say. But I didn't. I just swallowed it like everything else. Then Kenzie leaned toward me, voice sticky sweet. "We just don't want you to end up wasting your life." "Oh, cool. That's subtle." The food arrived. I ate in silence, Lila giving my leg a brief squeeze under the table. I was already mentally preparing my escape when the waiter wheeled out the cake. Everyone started singing loud and slightly off-key. I watched the candle flicker. One wish, right? I blew it out. Then I saw it. The cake. 5 words. Pink icing. No name. Still a disappointment. That was it. No happy birthday, Alex. Just that. I blinked. Laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, but because if I didn't laugh, I'd throw the damn cake. "Oh, come on," Kenzie said, sipping her wine. "It's just a joke." Uncle Mark clapped. "Best birthday cake ever. Brutally honest, huh?" Mom gave me that tight smile. The one she wears when she thinks you're overreacting. "Don't be so sensitive. We all love you. It's just some humor." I stood up. Didn't make a scene. Didn't flip the table. I just looped my bag over my shoulder. Lila touched my arm. "Alex," she whispered. "I'm good," I said, and I meant it. But before I left, I bent down and whispered something in Uncle Mark's ear. One sentence. He went pale. The smug look dropped off his face like a rock. I walked out. Didn't look back. That night, I turned off my phone. Spent the weekend off grid. I wasn't angry, I was done. But secrets don't like silence. They like chaos. They like attention. 2 weeks later, my phone lit up like Times Square. Mom, Kenzie, DD. Even Uncle Mark calls, texts, emails. Apparently, I'd caused a huge misunderstanding. Apparently, I needed to fix it. What did I whisper to Mark? Nothing dramatic. Just a little reminder. I know about the money. That's all. Funny thing about secrets, they rot. And the moment you bring them into the light, They don't fade, they explode. After that dinner, I didn't talk to anyone for a while. No calls, no texts. I wasn't giving silent treatment. I just didn't have anything left to say. The silence wasn't revenge, it was recovery. And honestly, it felt good. I started walking more. Around my neighborhood. Through parks. Headphones in, thoughts out. I listened to podcasts I'd ignored, made better coffee at home, started applying for jobs with less desperation and more strategy. Lila texted a few times. Short check-ins. You good? Let me know if you need to vent. I always replied. Thanks. Just processing. But then came the flood. One Thursday morning, I opened my inbox and found 3 missed calls, 5 voicemails, and an email from my mom with the subject line, "Urgent, call me now." Right, because now it's urgent. I listened to one voicemail from Kenzie. "You have no idea what you started. This isn't funny, Alex. You need to undo it. Call Uncle Mark, fix this." Undo what? I thought, but I already knew. The whisper. The secret. I hadn't planned it, but apparently it landed like a grenade. What I'd told him that night was simple. I knew about the money, the inheritance, the part he wasn't supposed to touch, the part Grandpa had legally cut him out of, the part he took anyway. Here's the thing, I wasn't bluffing. Months ago, I helped my parents clear out their attic. Dad had hurt his back, so I climbed up while Mom barked orders from below. Most of it was junk. Broken lamps, boxes labeled XMAS 1999 tax folders with dates that made me feel ancient. Then I found the envelope, thick, yellowing, marked with Grandpa's name in black Sharpie. It fell open when I moved a suitcase. Inside were documents, a scanned version of his will, bank statements, scribbled notes in Grandpa's handwriting, and an assigned amendment official notarized. That amendment? It changed everything. It said that Uncle Mark was no longer entitled to any inheritance unless he repaid a large loan he'd taken from the family business 10 years ago. Guess what? He didn't. Grandpa had written a note with the amendment. This isn't punishment, it's accountability. He'd added it a year before he died. But when Grandpa passed, Mark got his share anyway. A big one. And no one said a word. I didn't bring it up when I found it. I didn't know if my parents were involved or just clueless. So I took pictures. Every page. Stored them in a private folder and left it alone. Until the cake. Until the jokes. Until I realized they didn't just tolerate me being down, they needed me to be. Because if I stayed the screw up, they never had to look at themselves. So I whispered the one thing I knew would eat Mark alive that I knew. And I left. Now they were scrambling. I finally answered my mom's call. She sounded breathless, like she'd been pacing. "Why would you do that to Mark?" she asked, skipping hello entirely. "I didn't do anything," I said. "I just reminded him of something he forgot." "You're confused," she snapped. "You don't know the whole story." "Then tell me," I said. Silence. "He's always been generous with the family," she said finally. "Sure," I replied. "With Grandpa's money." There was a pause. Then her voice changed lower, tired, not surprised, defensive. "You don't understand what that money meant to him. That told me everything." She knew. Maybe not the whole truth, but enough. I hung up. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from Aunt Julia, Grandpa's youngest daughter, the one who lives 2 states over and barely shows up for Christmas. She never calls. Ever. "Lila told me what happened," she said. "If it's true, I need to see those documents." So I sent them. Every photo, every note, the amendment, the statements. She went silent for a few hours. Then texted, "This is real. I knew something was wrong when Mark suddenly bought that boat." She called a lawyer the next day. That's when the wheels started turning. First came the denial phase. Mark posted some vague Facebook status about jealous family members trying to tear down what others built, and how integrity doesn't need defending. The comments were split. Distant cousins said stuff like "family first," and "hope this gets sorted 3. But others, especially ones who'd known Grandpa, started asking questions. Then came the family group chat explosion. I hadn't looked at it in months. Muted it after Kenzie posted a passive-aggressive meme about some people just like being victims. But curiosity got the better of me. There were hundreds of messages. Mom and Kenzie were in full spin mode. "We've always supported Alex. He's just confused. He doesn't understand how estates work." But Lila, she wasn't staying quiet. She dropped screenshots of the amendment I sent Julia. One message read, "If you're mad at Alex for exposing this, and not at Mark for doing it, maybe you should rethink your priorities." Then Jacob jumped in. "So wait, Mark got the money even though Grandpa said no? That's fraud." Kenzie tried to pivot. "It's more complicated than that," but it wasn't. Julia, calm, methodical Julia, ended it with one sentence. "My attorney will be in contact with everyone who handled the estate." And then the chat went dead. What they didn't realize was how deep this could go. Because Grandpa's amendment wasn't just a note. It was signed, notarized, dated, legally binding. And somehow, it didn't make it into the probate process, which means someone either ignored it or removed it. There were only two people who had access to that paperwork before it was filed, Mark and my mother. And now, Julia's lawyer was pushing for an official investigation. Mark had gone from smug to silent. Kenzie went from snarky to panicked. Even Dad called asking if we could meet for coffee and talk it through. But I wasn't the same Alex from that dinner. I wasn't the one they could gaslight into guilt. I wasn't walking back into their arms because things got uncomfortable. I picked up the phone that night just once. For Julia. She said, "You know, if you hadn't said something, he would have gotten away with it. Maybe forever." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I didn't want to blow it all up," I said. She paused. "You didn't. You just lit a match." The house was already full of gas. After Julia's final message in the group chat, the silence hit like an echo in a canyon. Not the calm kind. The kind that makes you hold your breath because you know something's coming. And it did. Fast. First, the group chat went quiet. Then came the private messages. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years started popping up with carefully crafted curiosity. "Hey, just wondering, what's this about Mark and the will? Is this really true? Like, legally?" Some of them played neutral. Others went full lawyer in training, trying to poke holes in what I'd said without even seeing the proof. I didn't engage. I didn't have to. Julia had taken over that role. Her lawyer was already pulling documents, subpoenaing emails, and checking who had handled what during the probate process. And that's where it got messy fast. Turns out the original attorney Grandpa used for the will had retired, but not before storing everything digitally, including the amendment, including the email chain where he confirmed its delivery. But the version of the will that went through probate, no amendment, no mention of conditions, just an even three-way split. Guess who was listed as the point of contact for all the paperwork? My mother. And suddenly, this wasn't just family drama. It was potential probate fraud. Kenzie called me crying. She never cries. "You're going to ruin everything," she said through sobs. "Mom hasn't slept. Mark's losing it. You don't know what this is doing to us." Funny. No one cared what it was doing to me when I was the butt of every dinner joke. I stayed quiet. "You need to stop this," she begged. "Please, Alex. Just let it go." I could have hung up. I almost did. But I asked one thing instead. "Why did you all think that cake was okay?" She didn't answer right away. Then, barely audible, she whispered, "It was supposed to be funny." Yeah, I got that part. The fallout picked up speed. Julia's lawyer requested a formal investigation. That meant financial records, email chains, and interviews. It also meant digging into Mark's sudden lake house purchase 2 weeks after Grandpa passed, bought in cash, no mortgage. Convenient timing. Even more convenient? A quiet $30,000 transfer from Mark to my mother that showed up in the statements. Labeled consulting fee. Sure, word spread fast. Extended family started asking questions. Mark's holier-than-thou Facebook persona cracked fast. The vague posts stopped. Then the comments on his old ones disappeared. Then his account went private. A week later, I heard from Dad. I hadn't expected it. He doesn't usually wade into conflict, just floats along until it passes. But this time, he called. "Hey," he said, voice quiet. "Can we talk?" We met at a park, neutral ground. He looked tired, not defensive. "Just older than I remembered. I didn't know," he said, "about the amendment. Your mom told me it was a clean split. Did you ask?" "I didn't think I had to," he admitted. "She said Grandpa wanted peace." I watched a squirrel scurry across the grass, trying to decide if this conversation was worth finishing. She lied, I said. Or she let Mark lie for her. He didn't argue. "I'm sorry," he said, "not just for that. For everything. The dinner, The jokes. I didn't think it would hurt you that much. That stopped me. That's the problem, I said. No one ever thinks I should be hurt. He nodded. Not in defense, just understanding. Then he asked something no one else had. What do you want me to do? I didn't have an answer right away. So I said the truth. Be better. Or be gone. Back at home, I found a letter under my apartment door, handwritten. From Mom. 3 pages. Cursive. Neat. Like she was trying to win points for presentation. I read the first line. Everything I did was for the good of this family. Then I fed it into the shredder. I didn't want explanations. I wanted honesty. And she had years to try that. Lila came over that weekend. No drama, no lectures, just coffee and a quiet presence. She's freaking out, she said, setting down her mug. Mark's looking for lawyers, trying to protect his assets. Too late for that, I said. She smiled. Not smug, just proud. Julia's lawyer found something else, she added. Mark's name isn't the only one on the wire transfer forms from Grandpa's estate. Your mom's is there too. I didn't say anything at first. Just let it settle. Because this wasn't just about stolen money anymore. This was about betrayal, complicity. Years of being told I was imagining things, turns out I wasn't. Turns out I was the only one looking up while the rest of them were digging a hole. Julia updated me the next day. The lawyer was preparing to file for a court review of the estate, with the original amendment in hand, signed and notarized, and evidence of omitted documentation. It was a strong case. If the court sided with her, it would mean Mark paying back every cent of his share, with interest. My mom facing legal consequences for her role in concealing the amendment. Possible criminal charges depending on how deep it went. Kenzie texted again, "You're destroying the family. Hope you're happy." And for once, I didn't feel guilty, because I wasn't destroying anything. I was just telling the truth. One night, I was sitting on my balcony, laptop closed. Job search paused when a thought hit me. They had always seen me as the weakest link. And they were right, until I stopped trying to be accepted by people who only valued me when I was beneath them. The moment I stepped out of their narrative, everything changed. The day the court papers were filed, it didn't make a sound in my world. No bang, no announcement. Just a quiet email from Julia. Subject line filed. That's all it said. And yet, I swear, I felt the weight shift in the air. It was like the truth finally stretched its limbs after being buried alive for years. 2 days later, things started cracking publicly. Mark's lake house? Leaned. Frozen assets. A court order requesting financial disclosure. And the kicker? A formal investigation into possible will tampering with both his name and my mom's stamped right at the top. My phone lit up again, but the tone had changed. No more fix this. Now it was please. Kinsey tried to call. I ignored it. Then came a voicemail from Mom. Voice small, shaky. "Alex, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. We were just trying to protect Grandpa's wishes. Can we talk? Protecting someone's legacy by erasing their legal last request? That's a new spin on loyalty." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. It got worse for them. Julia's legal team had pulled everything. Email threads, wire transfers, statements, even a letter Mark wrote to the estate attorney at the time, casual, almost cocky, asking when funds would be available to all 3 siblings. This was after the amendment was signed. They didn't even try to cover their tracks. Or maybe they thought no one would ever look. That's the thing about arrogance. It makes you sloppy. I found out about the $30K consulting fee transfer from Mark to my mother through a PDF Julia sent. There it was, plain as day, right under the estate payout date. She attached one sentence with it. "This helps, right?" It didn't help. It burned. That money wasn't a thank you. It was a payoff. A silent handshake. A bribe disguised as appreciation. They always made me feel like the burden, the black sheep, the punchline. But turns out, they were the ones hiding rot behind a smile. Lila came over again, a week later. She brought donuts this time. Her emotional cushioning, she said, setting them down like peace offerings. "You okay?" she asked. "Depends," I said. "What part of this mess are we up to now?" "Asset seizure talk." Mark's lawyer tried to get ahead of it. "Julia's not having it." I nodded, taking a bite. Powdered sugar everywhere. "Also," she added, "your mom's trying to call in favors from family friends." "Let her," I said. "They don't know the truth. And if they do, and they still defend her, that tells me enough." We sat for a while. quiet, comfortable. Then she said something that stuck. You always thought being quiet meant being small. But this? You said one sentence. And the whole house caved. It took months. 8 of them. Paperwork. Depositions. Statements under oath. And through it all, I stayed out of it. I wasn't a party in the legal filing. Julia didn't want me dragged in, and I didn't ask to be. I'd already lit the match. I didn't need to hold the torch. What I did do was rebuild. Got hired by a small tech company, remote, chill vibe, no office politics. My manager's a guy who wears hoodies to Zoom calls and ends every meeting with "take care of your brain." For the first time in years, I didn't dread Mondays. I moved to a different neighborhood, smaller complex, nicer trees, quiet. I even started therapy, not the crisis kind, but the rebuilding kind. Talking to someone who didn't try to fix me, just help me hear myself. It wasn't revenge. It was resurrection. Then came the ruling. It was brutal. Mark was ordered to repay every cent of his inheritance to Julia, with interest. Nearly $230,000 by the time it was all tallied. My mom fined $15,000 for her role in concealing the amendment. Court documents called it intentional omission of critical estate documents. She had to sign a formal statement admitting she withheld legal paperwork. You want to talk about poetic justice? That lake house Mark bought? Gone. Court ordered a lien, forced sale. Listed online like any other broken dream. Kinsey went silent. No more Instagram stories about family dinners or subtle shade about jealous siblings. Instead, she posted a single black screen with white text. Some people really don't understand what loyalty means. I didn't reply. Because I do. Loyalty doesn't mean hiding the truth. It means honoring it even when it hurts. My dad reached out again, asked if we could meet. I said yes. This time, he didn't try to justify anything. He just apologized. Not the kind where people rush through it like a formality. The kind where someone sits in the discomfort of what they allowed. I should have asked more questions, he said. You should have protected me, I replied. I know. He didn't ask for forgiveness. That mattered more. Julia invited me to dinner. Just her, Lila, and me. We ate pasta, not at some fake Vine restaurant, but at her place. Real plates, no tension. She raised a glass halfway through and said, to the person who broke the silence. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled. But I felt it. Not pride, not satisfaction, peace. For once, I wasn't sitting at the table pretending not to be hurt. I wasn't a placeholder for someone else's narrative. I was seen, heard, real. After the court ruling, it felt like the air changed. Not lighter, not heavier, just clearer. Like the storm had passed, and now everything was wet, broken, and visible. Mark vanished. Not literally, but from family events, chats, social media. His name became that quiet noun no one wanted to say first. No more Uncle Mark stories. No more lake house pictures. He ghosted before anyone could ask him to. Mom didn't vanish. She lingered. Like a smell you can't scrub out. Apologetic. Strategic. Always reaching out just enough to say, see, I'm trying, but never enough to admit anything new. She sent a second letter. Thinner. 2 pages this time. No apology. Just context. Her favorite word. I was under pressure. Mark said it wouldn't hold up. I just wanted to avoid conflict. Funny how people always find their spine after it's already broken something. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because there's a difference between being sorry for what you did and being sorry for getting caught. Kinsey went back to silence. No more calls. No more snide remarks. She dropped off like a bad habit. Honestly, it was a relief. For the first time in my life, I wasn't flinching at notifications. No more wondering what kind of insult would be disguised as concern today. Lila called once a week now, just to talk about work, music. Nothing deep unless I wanted it to be. She was the only one who never asked me to explain myself. That's how I knew she was real family. One morning, I got a text from Dad. Coffee this weekend? No pressure, no guilt. Just that. We met at a quiet cafe. Not the one near the house where I grew up, somewhere neutral. Somewhere that didn't have ghosts in the floorboards. He looked tired, but not the kind of tired you fix with sleep. The kind you get when you finally started carrying your own guilt. We sat down. No small talk. He slid a small photo across the table. It was me, probably 7, maybe 8, sitting on Grandpa's shoulders in the backyard, grinning with my whole face. "I found this," he said. "Thought you might want it." I held it for a while. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was something softer. "I should have protected you," he said again. Same words as before, but this time, he looked me in the eye when he said them. "I let your mother set the rules. I stayed out of it. I thought that made me neutral." "It didn't?" I said quietly. He nodded. "I know." We sat there for over an hour. He didn't ask me to forgive anyone. He didn't ask me to come home for Thanksgiving. He just showed up. And that mattered more than any letter. By month 4 after the court ruling, things got quieter. No more legal updates. No more dramatic posts. Just this strange silence from the people who once had so much to say about me. I started writing more. Nothing serious, just journaling, dumping thoughts, letting them breathe. Turns out, healing isn't loud. It's boring. It's a Tuesday morning with tea instead of anxiety. It's realizing you haven't cried in 3 weeks and didn't even notice. I kept going to therapy. We talked about grief, not just the kind you feel when someone dies, but the kind you feel when people are still alive. Just not the version you hoped they'd be. "You're allowed to mourn them," my therapist said, "even if they're still breathing." She wasn't talking about Grandpa. I thought about him a lot. Not just the will, not just the money, but the way he saw me. He was one of the few people who never looked at me like I was a disappointment waiting to happen. I remember him telling me once, "You're not lost, you're just not on their map." Back then, I thought it was just something old people said to sound wise. But now I think he knew exactly what was coming. Maybe that's why he changed the will. Maybe he knew Mark would take what he wanted. Maybe he didn't think I'd be the one to catch it, but maybe he hoped someone would. I hope I made him proud. Even now, Julia and I stayed in touch. Not weekly, but steadily. She checked in every few weeks. I'd get texts like, "Saw a vintage sailboat and thought of Mark's lake house. RIP." Or "Thinking about Grandpa today. Hope you're doing okay." We didn't need to be best friends. We were just allies. Survivors of the same storm. She once told me, "It's strange when justice works. You spend so long bracing for nothing, and then it actually lands." She was right. The next family dinner came around in spring. Not the formal kind, just a cousin's birthday. Lila was invited, so was I. I didn't go. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't need to prove I could show up anymore. Lila brought me a slice of cake the next day. No joke frosting, no sarcasm. Just chocolate and a smile. "Nothing written on it?" I asked. She grinned. "Just frosting. And a lot of sprinkles. Progress." Sometimes, I still walk past the old restaurant where it all cracked open. I don't stop. I don't stare. But I always think about that night. That moment, the candle, the cake, the words written in pink icing like they meant nothing. Still a disappointment. And I smile now, because they were wrong. Not about me being a disappointment, but about who that sentence was meant for. It's strange how silence feels after everything explodes. Not hollow, not tense, just clean. That's what life felt like in the months after everything settled. No more court filings, no more voicemail guilt trips, no more tension clawing at my spine every time I opened my messages. Just me, living my own life, one I didn't have to explain or defend anymore. The last time I saw my mother was unplanned. It was late summer. Grocery store. She was in the produce aisle, holding an avocado like it might answer for her sins. She saw me before I could duck. Our eyes met. She didn't say anything at first. Just this flicker of something in her expression: surprise, hope, exhaustion, maybe all three. "Alex," she said finally, like the name tasted strange. I nodded. "Mom." The silence that followed wasn't heavy, just long. She glanced at the cart, like small talk might fix something. "You look well." I did. New job, better neighborhood. No unpaid therapy sessions disguised as family dinners. "Thanks," I said. She hesitated. "I'm sorry for everything." I believe she meant it, in that moment, as much as she was able to. But some damage doesn't rewind. It doesn't unhappen just because someone regrets it. So I just nodded again. Not cold, not cruel, just final. "Take care of yourself," I said, and kept walking. I didn't turn around. People think closure is a conversation, a hug, an apology wrapped in a ribbon. But for me, it was a grocery aisle and a sentence with a period. I didn't need more, because I had already given myself what no one else could, permission to stop trying. Lila and I still talk all the time. She got promoted again, now leads her own team. We celebrated with tacos and dumb sitcom reruns. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked one night, lighting the match. I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. "I regret how long I waited to." She nodded like she already knew the answer. "I think Grandpa would have been proud," she said. "I think so too." As for Mark, I heard through Julia that he relocated, sold off the boat, lost a few old friends along the way. Reputation doesn't wash off that easy, not when it's in court documents. The family still whispers about it, softly, like saying his name too loud might summon more shame. He hasn't tried to contact me. Good. Kinsey reappeared around Thanksgiving, posted a photo with a caption that felt like a dare. Family means forgiveness. I didn't comment, because family also means accountability, and forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or inviting old wounds back in just because they miss your warmth. Some bridges don't need burning, they just need to be left behind. Julia invited me to speak at a memorial gathering we held for Grandpa that winter. Nothing big, just a dozen of us. People who actually knew him, who remembered the way he hummed while fixing things, or how he always carried loose change to tip generously, even for takeout. I said a few words, not rehearsed, just real. I think Grandpa believed in giving people the chance to do better, but not at the cost of pretending they never did wrong. After, Julia came over and hugged me. "He'd be proud of you," she whispered. That stuck with me, because for the first time in a long while, I believed it. I got a cake this year, from Lila, delivered to my place on my birthday. No giant party, no group texts. Just a quiet message, for the only one brave enough to tell the truth. The cake? Simple. Chocolate frosting, blue icing on the edges. The writing? Just one word. Enough. And for the first time in a long while, I felt it. Not like a question, not like a complaint. Enough as in complete. Enough as in worthy. Enough as in, I didn't have to fight anymore to prove I mattered. Sometimes, I still think about that first cake, the one they brought out like a punchline. Still a disappointment. I've come to realize they needed that story more than I ever did. They needed someone to point to, someone to laugh at, someone to stay beneath them, so they never had to question how they got where they were. I was the easiest target, the scapegoat with soft edges, until I wasn't. It's easy to underestimate quiet people. We let things slide. We smile when we're supposed to. We carry the weight no one else wants to admit exists. But quiet isn't weakness. Quiet is calculation, observation, a decision not to play their game. And when we finally speak, we don't shout. We say 5 words that flip the story upside down. "I know about the money." And then we walk out. I still have that photo Dad gave me on Grandpa's shoulders, barefoot in the grass, sun in my hair. I keep it on my desk. Not because I want to remember what I lost, but because I want to remember what I protected. A legacy, my dignity, myself. People ask me sometimes if I'd do it again, tell the truth, set the match, let the fallout come. And every time I say the same thing, I didn't ruin the family, I just stopped letting it ruin me. Story 2 my parents posted when I graduated. Our pride in both of our children is immense. One has actual promise, whereas the other graduated. I quit the group chat to do this since my brother hadn't graduated from high school. They arrived in the rain outside my flat a year later. I ought to have been more aware. For a little foolish moment, I believed that perhaps I was no longer invisible, but I didn't know any better. Let me go back in time. The day of graduation, an important time. In order to keep the house, we had to work evenings at a grocery store, commute 2 hours a day, and balance classes for 4 years. At last, I was carrying a piece of paper that seemed to have made me successful as I crossed the stage in a rumpled gown. Ivy League was not the case. I gave a big clap, but no one else did. I obtained a computer science degree. No safety net, no loans. My backpack, myself, and the sheer power of resentment. By the way, my parents did not attend. My mom is a freelance photographer who publishes #Cappuccino and sunshine photos around 2 p.m. and I'm very certain my dad hasn't had a steady work since 2018. It seems strange that they indicated they couldn't get the time off. Tuesdays. But whatever. You see, I wasn't angry. They had said something that offered me a glimmer of hope. So even though I was angry, I convinced myself I wasn't. While I was warming up my coffee in the kitchen that morning, I overheard my mother telling my dad that we ought to post something for Caleb later. Today is a significant day. Yeah, it's the least we can do, remarked my dad, who normally saves his compliments for Tyler's most recent unfinished hobby and his favorite baseball club. I didn't grin or respond. I just stood there, trying not to breathe too loudly, gazing at the microwave, as if the enchantment would be broken if I made a sound. A post. They intended to publish a post. I'll tell you why that was important. For everything they publish, a new skateboard is given to Tyler. An Instagram story with 10 slides is available. Half a picture is colored by Tyler. Facebook. Actual. Real estate is something Tyler claims he would be interested in. My son's awesomeness is manifested in this entire Twitter thread with hashtags. For years I was radio silent. They warned me not to come across as arrogant after I made the dean's list once. So, yes, that was a large post. For the following few hours, I allowed myself to believe that perhaps they had noticed me this time. Maybe I wasn't simply the walking ATM who silently purchased Tyler's textbooks, even though he never opened them, or the person who paid the mortgage when the water heater failed. After the ceremony, I was cuddled up in bed with my cap on the floor, and on the train home at 11 p.m., I kept checking my phone, thinking maybe I was their son. At last, a picture with a caption appeared. Our pride in both of our children is immense. One graduated, and I simply gazed at the other, which had genuine potential. Let's dissect that. One received their degree. Cool, true, unclear. It's a blurry wide shot of someone who could be me walking across the stage if you squint, like I was a stock photo they Googled. There is no name or tag. The second section, however, came next. There is genuine promise in the other one. And there he was, Tyler holding a surfboard and a smile, shirtless. Since failing 3 math classes and still receiving a badge of pride for pursuing ambition seems to be the epitome of a bright future, the warmth I had been clinging to throughout the day suddenly became bitter in my chest. It was everything beneath the caption, not just the caption itself. The fact that they decided to honor me in this way by comparing a degree I had worked so hard to years of loneliness, exhaustion, and near malnutrition. With Tyler's unspoken desire to enroll in a community college when he's ready. Not even my name was mentioned. He was tagged, not me. I was 16 all of a sudden, seeing Tyler receive a brand new bike for receiving a C in biology. After I aced calculus, I was informed that grades aren't everything. While Tyler dropped out and embarked on a road journey focused on mental health, I was 19 years old, working 2 jobs and attending night school. He primarily posted vape stunts on TikTok and slept on sofas. And I was 22, standing in our kitchen thinking like a fool that maybe they would say something wonderful about me at last. I remained silent. Didn't enjoy it. I just tapped leave conversation after exiting the app and entering the group chat. That's what it was, and I sat there in the dark with my phone in my hand and a taste of humiliation in my lips. Disgrace, not rage, not even let down. Just the intense, agonizing knowledge that, despite your best efforts, you will always be the background noise to someone else's degree. Encourage your entire family. You may be the afterthought in your own tale, even if you give up every last bit of your youth. They were unaware that I had departed from the group chat. Naturally, they didn't. However, I took note. And I made the decision that was sufficient for the first time. I had had enough of waiting for a thank you text, a plaque, or a post that would never come. Their surfboard prodigy was theirs to keep. In addition to my degree, I had a lot of quiet to fill. I should be accustomed to it by now, wouldn't I? When it was for someone else, the applause always appeared to be a little louder, the stillness, the shrinking. The thing that bothers you the most, in my opinion, is how commonplace it becomes when your brother forgets your birthday and your parents claim that he's going through a difficult time. You begin calculating love instead of anticipating a gift. And why are you allowed to stay when they make fun of you for being concerned? I grew up in that beat. I don't have a dramatic childhood story about being refused food or confined under the stairs. In theory, My parents provided for my food, clothing, and even a few PTA events until the guilt set in. You understand exactly what I mean when I say that it wasn't neglect, but rather polite erasure. If you've ever been the child who was only commended for being low maintenance. Then there came my younger brother, Tyler. My 2 years, yet in some way, I was always the one who required more tolerance, understanding, and space. In human form, Tyler was a storm, emotional and loud. He was charming enough to get females to give him another opportunity and professors to overlook his late assignments. He might pass a test after the fourth lie and persuade you that it was a political statement. When I was, in addition, my mother would squint and advise me to strive higher the following time. After Tyler had a C-. Yes, it was. He is doing his hardest. He has a lot on his mind. Buying sneakers, using my debit card in 8th grade, and saying he believed it was family. Money seems to be another example of having a lot on your mind. Warning. He didn't reimburse me when I was accepted to college. No cake was given to me. I received a grocery list and a gentle reminder that I should help out around the house a little more because I would be living at home to save money. By chipping in, they meant working as many shifts as they could to make up the difference when the mortgage was short, in addition to preparing for exams and traveling 2 hours a day. My palm was still smelling like deli meat, and my eyes were half open. In our household, Tyler's self-discovery year included dropping out of high school, posting philosophical commentary beneath photographs with a shirtless mirror, and occasionally beginning unfinished projects, such as the dropshipping plan, the fitness coaching, the YouTube channel, and the dog walking company. They all received more acclaim than my scholarship itself. The sentence my mom loves the most. All he has to do is discover his passion, right? I guess one discovered mine first. Working and not whining. To be clear, I didn't want a parade or a gold award, but I did hope that perhaps, after 4 years of giving up all of my time and energy to support this family, they would. I'm not sure. In a Facebook post, don't forget my name. Rather, I have genuine promise. Let's discuss that expression. A backhand to the soul, if you will. It says nothing, yet it says everything. He hasn't taken any action. Don't worry though, he may. If he ever does, that is. They will undoubtedly be present, clapping in the front row as if they had always thought about it. In the meanwhile, I was responsible for Tyler's textbook expenses. Indeed, they were not wasted even after he left. In his room, he used one of them to steady a shaky desk leg. I continued to assist. I have no idea why. Perhaps I believed that if I continued to be helpful, people would begin to value me. When the energy bill arrived, my mom sobbed and pleaded. We just need a little breathing room this month, so I covered internet, food, insurance, and even once slipped $200 into her handbag. It's funny that when Tyler asked for concert tickets, she never appeared to be out of breath. But occasionally, there were tiny holes in the armor where I allowed myself to feel important. Like when I took over everything after my dad became ill. Bills, appointments, and medications. I don't know what we'd do without you, he murmured, giving me a single glance. And I clung to that statement as if it were gospel. I permanently marked it on the walls of my mind. However, Tyler had already smashed his automobile by the time he recovered, and I was once again the dependable person who could provide a hand for a little while. The task itself isn't the worst part, in my opinion. Working doesn't bother me. It's because, despite my efforts, it never made the news. Never a tale worth telling, never a post. My mom is on Instagram like he's the hero of a shampoo commercial as Tyler gets a haircut. The most I receive for my 60 hours of effort a week is lukewarm. Don't exert too much effort on yourself, which I formerly believed to be a cause for alarm. I now believe that it was code for avoid burning out. You are still needed. Therefore, I wasn't surprised by the caption when I saw the graduation photo. I was surprised. I allowed myself to wish for a different outcome. The most painful thing is that. Not because of what they did, but because I briefly thought that this time would be different. Maybe it could be sufficient to just cross that level. Perhaps the young person who stayed, made the payment, and kept things together in silence would be given the opportunity to be in the limelight at last. I was edited out of my own celebration instead. Nobody even noticed when I departed from the group conversation. Not even a text? No. Are you all right? No. Nothing. It resembled the digital equivalent of seeing them all enter a family portrait and close the door. Tyler undoubtedly believes that I'm exaggerating. Like, ha ha ha, Caleb's big day. He most likely took a screenshot of the post and forwarded it to someone with a laughing emoji. But fanfare wasn't what I was after. I wanted evidence that I hadn't overestimated the work and that I hadn't squandered 4 years attempting to achieve something that wasn't worth it in the first place. Their affection, their pride, and their approval. And perhaps it was time to cease providing them anything at all if they were unable to provide me with that. I didn't announce anything. No big exit. No sentimental "I'm done" remarks. When my mom said that groceries were scarce, I just stopped paying the phone bill and stopped Venmoing her a bit more. Ceased sending my dad job postings. Ceased reminding Tyler, "I apologize, Mr. Real. He has the opportunity to submit his application to a community college, which he never began. Incidentally, I didn't leave the house in a hurry." No doors were slammed by me. Starting with the money, I immediately started the silent surgical procedure to remove myself from their life. The number of things I was covertly sponsoring would astound you. During my sophomore year, I had set up automatic utility payments and had never stopped them. Last winter, I purchased new tires for my dad's vehicle without telling him. They simply materialized like magic. For heaven's sake, I was still using Wi-Fi, so I signed into all of my accounts, apps, and regular payments that I had set up out of obligation or shame. And one by one, I pressed cancel. Click done. Click gone. It was similar to removing layers from a costume. At first, I was unaware that I was wearing. Nothing took place. Not a single text. No. Hello? Has anything changed? The radio was silent as usual. Tyler continued to put thirst traps. Even now, my mother continues to tag him with inspirational sayings like "the best is yet to come." The banknotes then began to bounce. Subtle indicators. On the kitchen counter is a notification about the late charge. My father wants to know if the bank has been acting strangely. The Wi-Fi dropped out in the middle of TikTok, so Tyler is yelling at the router. Still, nobody gave me a glance. They hardly batted an eye, even when I abandoned my part-time employment to begin a full-time graduate position. I moved into a little one-bedroom apartment across town after packing up my belongings, and nobody inquired if I needed assistance, which, to be clear, I did not. I wanted someone, anybody, to show concern even for a few moments. Instead, on the day I moved out, my mom sent me a single SMS. "Remember to store any leftover spaghetti in the refrigerator." It's touching. Then the fissures began to open up. My dad phoned and left a voicemail saying, "Hey buddy, a week after I moved out, this month's gas bill was more than normal. If you have a few dollars to spot us, please let me know. There is no pressure." I didn't answer. The next day, Tyler texted me. "Can you send me about $40 for petrol, dude? I have no money." Mom added that "you used to hide that material anyhow. It used to." I almost laughed at that part. He didn't express gratitude, didn't inquire. I just used to feel like I was a dead service. They neglected to replace. My mother then sent out the group message. "You're still a member of our family, even though I know things have been difficult lately. We simply aren't able to pay the deposit at this time, and Tyler needs help signing up for classes. It would mean a lot if you could help." To lessen the impact, she even included a heart emoji. I knew then that they were not missing me. My labor was missed. They missed my money, my reminders, and the fact that I was a tool rather than a human. That's when I began to speak. Not to them, not quite yet. To those who saw me in person, coworkers. A manager who asked me what I wanted to learn next and congratulated me on getting the graduate position. Not as quickly as I could clean up someone else's mess. I began attending the gym. I simply wanted to feel like I had a body again, not to look attractive. As if I were more than a set of hands supporting someone else's roof. I purchased a bookcase. My own bookcase constructed it by themselves. Packed it full of books that no one had borrowed, spilled on, or said were too dull. And I breathed a bit better each time I sat in solitude without someone shouting from the other room for just one more item, or every time a bill didn't arrive in my email. Naturally, though, they didn't let go in silence. My mother contacted me again one evening 2 weeks after I'd relocated. She texted, and I didn't respond. "Don't shut us out, please. You're not like this." She was also correct. I wasn't like that. It seemed as though he had finally come to terms with his lack of importance. "I'm not shutting you out," I said. "I'm done giving you stuff you don't value." She didn't respond. Tyler sent me a note the next day. "You're exaggerating. You don't have to play the victim just because someone posted something stupid." A victim? It's an interesting statement from someone who claimed we were emotionally torturing him by asking him to clean his room and who once cried on the kitchen floor because his gaming headset broke. I am the theatrical one, though. It escalated more quickly than I anticipated. The next week, my dad texted me, "You got your message across. You're upset. However, you cannot choose to leave this family simply because you feel ignored." That's when I realized none of them got it. This has nothing to do with rage. There was no tantrum here. This was lucidity. They weren't being punished by me. I was breaking free from a pattern that had sapped my energy for years. And at last, they sensed it. Not with shouting, not by slamming doors. Through quiet, quiet, quiet. I discovered that my words are more powerful than all the years I've spent pleading for attention. There was a knock first, nor a phone call, nor a text. At 7:42 p.m., there was a real knock on my flat door. Wednesday. Rain was falling, it was of course. And I noticed all three of them when I combed among the people. Tyler, my mother, and my father were standing there in wet coats. Faces that looked like they just walked out of a soap opera. No umbrella. I partially opened the door. "Caleb." My mother's voice was already trembling as she spoke. "We must speak." I remained still. "You had the option to call." Flatly, I replied. "We made an effort." My father went right in. "However, it's obvious that you won't respond." That's right, because I don't want to play game 6 of emotional Monopoly, where Tyler constantly passes and I keep paying, I remarked. "Proceed!" Tyler gave an eye roll. "God, oh God, you continue to do this?" I clenched my jaw but did not respond. "What precisely are you looking for?" I inquired. "This has to be fixed," my mother said as she moved forward. "This family is disintegrating. Bills are behind us. Tyler may lose his position at the school to which he never applied." I interrupted. She winced. My father went right in. "You're correct." "All right, you got your message across. Without your support, we've been having trouble. However, you can't simply leave your family behind." It was there. Just an allegation cloaked in phony vulnerability, with no apologies. I turned to face Tyler. "I was being theatrical, you said." "I still feel that way," I said. He gave a shrug. "Yes, you abandoned us with a caption. In fact, the caption made me giggle." "You received your degree?" he remarked, taking a step forward. "Well done. Really. However, you haven't actually cured cancer." "You didn't either." "I lost my temper. However, you managed to get the procession." Quiet. Behind them, thunder shattered. The time was ideal. With a gentler voice, my mother tried again. "Caleb, you've always been the one with strength. I didn't believe you need that level of acknowledgement." "I'll translate that for you," I said. "You believed that as long as you continued to see me, I would put up with being neglected." "No," she answered hastily. "It's not that." "Then what is it?" As I stepped fully inside the doorway, I inquired. "Right now, what should I say, in your opinion? That you have my forgiveness. That I'll return and continue to pay for your errors." In his jammies, Tyler portrays a company founder. "He's trying," she said in a whisper. "He's 20, I said. "He's straining your patience in Instagram Live. The two are not the same." Under his breath, Tyler murmured something. "What was that?" I inquired. "Perhaps we shouldn't have asked you for anything at all," I said. He lost his temper. "You wouldn't act like we owe you the moon, at least." I blinked. I answered, "You don't owe me the moon. You must give me credit. Perhaps the man who kept this home together for years deserves more than a footnote, and you owe me the respect to say so." My father's expression darkened. "You're behaving as though we mistreated you," he remarked. "You were a resident of our home." "Yes," I said, "and the pleasure was paid for by me." I raised my hand before he could finish speaking. I said, "You know what the worst part is? Even the money isn't the problem. It's that you didn't realize I was gone until the fridge became more bare and the Wi-Fi stopped functioning. Not because you were missing me, because the convenience was lost on you." Nobody said anything. Rain continued to fall behind them, steady and chilly. My mother then stated it. The last card. "We adore you, Caleb." And I answered, No, Mom. Looking her in the eyes, you cherished what I was able to achieve for you. You no longer know who I am now that I've quit. She sobbed. Tyler muttered something about my being self-centered as he shook his head and left. I didn't immediately shut the door, but my dad gave me the look of someone who had just betrayed the family line. I gave them more time to stand there as the hush descended. This was never about one post, I said. It was about all the times you told me that since I wasn't as frail as he was, I didn't require praise. However, I lacked strength. I simply kept quiet. I'm finished now. I then closed the door. No drama, no smash, just finished. Within the next weeks, the situation became dire. Tyler attempted to reason with me by messaging our common acquaintances. He stated I needed to get over my ego since I was going through something. That was the subject line of an email my mom sent. Can we begin again? In addition to a PayPal link for one more tuition payment, it was brimming with passive-aggressive affection. It was archived by me. I got a voicemail from my father. Do you believe that you are now superior to us? Well done. Let's see how far you can get with it. It worked out rather well since I received a promotion 2 months later. I relocated to a better location. Newton is the name of my dog, because if my parents have taught me anything, it is that there is an equal and opposite reaction to every action. I began visiting a therapist because, for the first time in my life, I could afford to prioritize myself, not because I was damaged. Newton curled at my feet as I stood on my balcony that night, after the rain had ceased and the air outside my apartment was silent, and I allowed myself to breathe. Not for anybody else. Not to establish anything, only for me. And that was sufficient. I still occasionally ask myself if I went too far. Perhaps I ought to have taken one of those calls, improved the explanation, been more tactful when establishing limits, in whatever way that may be. But then I think back to all the years I kept quiet. They disregarded the way they shouted harder for potential than they ever did for proof, skipped all the birthdays, and made no sacrifices. I am also aware that this was not cruelty. Clarity was the key, because leaving doesn't necessarily imply being angry. Sometimes it just indicates that you are no longer the fallback option for those who never intended to esteem you. What do you think then? Was I too severe? Did I have to give them another chance? Or was it time for someone to confront them? With quiet, not with words. Tell me in the comments below. I would love to know what you think. And if you enjoy such tales, keep quiet, retaliation, drama in the family, hard-won tranquility. Press the subscribe button. Story 3. There's no reason why we welcomed you. My mother lost her temper. Why have you come here at all? Don't tell people we're connected, my sister added. I said nothing, but the CEO understood exactly what they had done when they thanked me by name. 3 days later, they were pleading with me over the phone while crying. I wish I could claim that I was taken aback. I'd want to tell you. My hands were shaking. My lip trembled. When my own mother whispered those words to me, tears filled my eyes. To be honest, though, it was more of a sigh. When your GPS reroutes you through traffic once more, you let out the same tired sigh and accept it. I didn't recoil. I remained silent. I refrained from rolling my eyes. I just nodded as if I had just been informed that tomato was the soup of the day, while standing in the Hilton Ballroom's marble-floored foyer with my name card in hand. Naturally, my sister looked beautiful. She always has flawless hair, well-tailored dresses, and shoes that probably cost more than the textbooks I used for my first year of college. There was something about her that shouts that effortless shine. Choosing between the silver and gold clutches was the hardest thing I had to do today. Keep our relationship a secret. She snarled once more, with the same venom but gentler. I just gave her a fleeting glance, long enough to measure the fear in her eyes. The worry that I may tell others that we shared a bathroom bunk bed when we were kids, as though my presence might unintentionally damage her career. I responded, "You got it. It wasn't worthwhile." Not a fight, not even a mocking return, because this is what they were unaware of. I didn't come to ruin the occasion. I was right where I needed to be, and the host had personally invited me. The purpose of the gala was to celebrate the impending merger of two mid-sized legal technology companies. My sister was employed by one of those businesses. The other, the one that I secretly constructed without their approval, encouragement, or even bare curiosity. They didn't deserve a heads up, so I didn't tell them that I could have made the moment into a spectacle. Nothing was fair to them. Instead, I sat down, the one with the small reserved card prominently displayed, sitting 2 tables back, surrounded by other spouses, parents, and other proud relatives who genuinely knew what their kids were doing for a living, were my sister and my parents. At first, they didn't notice me. Obviously not. Why would they? I was dressed simply in a black wrap dress that I had worn to 3 previous conferences. I had my hair up in a bun, not a lot of makeup. They probably thought I was someone's assistant because of the way I looked. The dinner was a haze of networking and courteous clinks. Small talk. I spoke quietly. Allow others to take the lead in discussions. I was not there to be recognized. It occurred midway through the lemon tart dessert. Not too bad. Perhaps a bit too much zest. The MC walked up to the podium, tapping the mic like someone in a rom-com about to make a wedding toast. She gave a short, heartfelt speech about innovation, resilience, and the importance of vision. Then she said my name, Cloudcliff, confident, like it meant something. Please join me in thanking the woman who made this merger possible, the founder and CEO of Lexus Systems, Miss Mira Langston. There was applause, maybe a few gasps. Chairs turned, heads swiveled. I stood. My sister's face was the first I saw her fork frozen midair, her jaw slack. She looked like someone had just dumped a bucket of ice water over her head in the middle of a spa day. My mother frozen that thin, tight-lipped smile she wears when she's pretending not to be panicking. I made my way to the stage, slowly, savoring the moment in the same way you might savor a glass of wine you didn't expect to like. The applause wasn't thunderous, but it was real, the kind that comes from genuine respect. I gave a short speech, thanked my team, thanked the other company for their transparency and openness, thanked the community, didn't mention my family, didn't even glance their way. I ended with one line. Some people build empires with fanfare, others build them in silence. Tonight, the first proud to stand here representing the ones who chose the latter. Again. When I sat back down, my phone buzzed 3 texts, all from my mother. 1. We need to discuss. 2. Why didn't you inform us? 3. This is vital. Mira. I didn't answer, not because I was upset, not because I intended to be unkind, but because they had made it apparent they didn't want to be affiliated with me. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to give them precisely what they asked for. 3 days later, they were calling me in tears. If you had asked my parents to describe me before the gala, they probably would have said something like, Mira, oh, she does stuff with computers, fixes them, or whatever. That was the charitable version. Most of the time, I was just solemn or hard to talk to. I was the reserved one, the one who liked reading more than breakfast, and using a laptop more than chit-chatting. Ava, on the other hand, was the epitome of charm. She was fashionable, captivating, and the family dinner favorite. She took center stage. I was asked if I still drove that small vehicle. Half the time, they had no idea which city I was from when I was accepted to MIT. That's the one in Massachusetts, isn't it? My mother asked, blinking. They didn't inquire about my next steps when I graduated. They just brought up Ava's most recent audition again. Back then, I still made an effort to share. My mother once said, "That's nice." When I told them about my promotions, my company's debut, and my involvement in the introduction of a new platform, Ava was flown to Miami for an influencer retreat. Did you hear? I gave out that latest update. They didn't recall what I did, and if they did, they made a terrible mistake. She works as a divorce lawyer's app developer. At a wedding, Ava once told a friend, "No, I wasn't." 3 large law firms employed the contract automation software I was developing. However, I quit being their daughter and started working for them as their emergency tech support, and later as their bank. Mom's dentist expense came first, followed by their internet, and then Avis's rent for a single month. I was sending about $2,000 a month by the time I was 30. Thank you, but no inquiries. Bills were just forwarded. They thought I was thrifty, eating noodles, and perhaps still sharing a room. They never once inquired about my financial situation. Because they didn't want to care, they didn't want to know. And I agreed to that. I convinced myself that I didn't require their blessing. Up until the gala, when I went in and they gave me the look of someone who had broken into a party, that constructing lecture systems, our clientele, and our development were sufficient. There's no reason you were invited. Don't tell anybody we're connected. my mother said. I sat, ate the chicken, smiled pleasantly, and didn't turn to face their table when the CEO came on stage and greeted me by name. Ava continued. That evening, I canceled all of the payments. Water, online, e-mortgage got lost. No notes. Not a drama. An internal report arrived in my mailbox the next morning. They were reviewing Ava's section. Problems with performance. Issues with leadership. They inquired as to whether I had any concerns about the suggested restructuring. I didn't. I just clicked approve. They were crying as they called me 3 days later, pleading with me to save them. The first was a text message from Ava the next morning. No salutations. Not a single emoji. Just, I'm getting demoted, did you know that? I took a while to reply. She didn't even try to turn it into a discussion, not because I didn't know. Another text an hour later. Did this involve you in any way? I laughed at that one, not too loudly. It was just one of those breathy, tight laughs you get when someone faces the consequences of their own behavior and begins searching for someone to blame. My phone is set to do not disturb. She made 2 calls that evening. But then her mother left me a voicemail. Mira, now is not the time to be obstinate. Ava is inconsolable. Your point has been made. This has gone too far, though. Give her a call. Life made the point, even though I had made mine. I just remained silent. However, isn't silence a loud thing? Even deafening. Particularly if you're accustomed to having someone tidy up your mess. Then they simply cease. Ava's demotion had become office lore by the end of the week. She reportedly sobbed at a strategy session, yelled at someone during a meeting, and then took a week off for mental health, which mostly consisted of sharing ambiguous phrases on her Instagram feed and watching for direct messages. I didn't get involved at all. I didn't communicate with HR regarding the reports. I remained silent. The problem didn't even come close to my breath. However, rumors spread, and ultimately someone at her workplace realized what was going on. The fact that I was the one in charge of Lexer Systems made me positive that the business they were now merging with wasn't some anonymous tech behemoth. I owned it. All of her disparaging remarks about her awkward sister who messes with startup stuff didn't seem to hold up over time. When Ava appeared outside my building, I knew something had gone wrong. My house, not the office. It was late in the afternoon on a Thursday. I was deciding whether I had the energy to cook or just order after returning from a meeting. Thank you. It buzzed on the intercom. It's Ava. Come on, let me. I mostly let her in out of curiosity. She entered donning a trench coat and large sunglasses. As if the paparazzi might be hiding in the bushes, she thought. She looked around and said, "Nice place. Regards," I said. No, God. Look, small talk is not why I'm here. Obviously not. She was standing clumsily in the center of the living room, shifting her weight as if she was unsure whether to run or sit. They're discussing letting me go, she eventually said. My eyebrows went up. They. The review team, the board, or someone else? Who do you know? She said, you could stop it. The CEO is you. I cocked my head. Well, no. A number of levels of scrutiny are applied to the decision. I don't have the last word. Her eyes narrowed. However, if you so desired, you could affect it. Yes, there was. I gave her a glance but remained silent. You're to blame, she yelled. I was embarrassed by you. You had the option to identify yourself to us. You gave us time to reflect. You instructed me to keep our relationship a secret. Calmly, I broke off my speech. Do you recall? She became red. That's not how I meant it. The night was difficult. It was a typical evening. I said, do you feel stressed? For me, perhaps. Tuesday was the date. She clenched her jaw. Your sister is me, and I was the source of your shame. Quiet. Then she said it. The sentence that shattered what little self-control I still have. Don't hold me responsible for your treatment by your parents. I blinked once as I gazed at her. Then I got to my feet. You ought to go. Mirror, I said. I responded. This isn't punishment. When you spend your entire career acting like someone you're not, this is what occurs. And at last, everyone takes notice. She didn't say anything more before leaving. She lost her job 2 days later. The formal explanation. Bad judgment and poor leadership. Destroyed confidence. However, I am aware of their thoughts. What they muttered, I know. That She was unable to maintain her career despite having family at the top. That her appearance, not her content, brought her there, and they weren't mistaken for once. On Sunday morning, there was another knock. It was both of them this time. My folks. Like a door-to-door tragedy. They were waiting at my door. My dad had his hands stuffed deep in his coat pockets, while my mom was carrying a Tupperware container. We brought muffins. That would erase decades, according to my mother. Could we enter? I allowed them in because I'm not unkind, my dad added. I didn't offer tea, though. The living room was where we sat, the same sofa. Days earlier, Ava had stood in front. Your sibling is in pain. Mom got things started. She is inconsolable. This whole affair has been difficult for all of us, my dad added. Do you believe I orchestrated this? Didn't you say that? My mother asked too soon. I grinned icily. I simply did not stop it. There is a distinction. They made awkward small talk, complimented the apartment, and said I looked so grown up. Then the actual question arose. We wanted to know. Slowly, my dad asked if you would think about lending a hand once again, until things are resolved, with some of the bills. This year has been difficult, my mother continued. It had, of course. You mean that I started submitting the payments I had been doing for 5 years again? I inquired. Both of them appeared shocked. We were unaware of how long it had been, my mother whispered. Since you didn't inquire, I said. Requests were just sent by you. My father cleared his throat. We are a reflection of the family. We help one another. I gave a nod. That's right. Therefore, when it became evident that just one side was providing the assistance, I ceased making payments. Again, please, silence, my mother muttered. Ava has lost all of her things. She requires time. She had time, I said. For years, I kept everything together in the background while she received all of the praise. They had nothing else to say, so they didn't quarrel. After a while, they departed, taking their muffins with them, and I remained motionless on the couch. Not winning, not arrogant, just finished. Completely finished. I received a letter from the HR department 3 days later. When I approved the final report without making any changes, Ava had appealed her termination. The notes were written by her. Please think again. I am the sister of Mira Langston. I had never been claimed by her before. Furthermore, it was too late. For roughly a month, I didn't hear from any of them. Not Ava. Not my folks. It was quiet and glorious, and not a single one of those awkward messages asking if I could explain how their health insurance worked again. During those 4 weeks of silence, I accomplished more than I had in months. We signed 2 enterprise clients, launched the new integration tools, and completed the merger. Actually, I am the boss, and I proudly drink from it every single day according to the mug my team sent me. Then there was a knock. It was one of those wet Thursday nights when you just want to curl up with leftovers and shut out the outside world. The knock, however, continued. I opened the door grudgingly. My dad and mom were standing there, drenched. This time, no muffins and no umbrella, only forced smiles and soaked coats. I didn't immediately welcome them in. My mother forced a giggle as she continued. We were in the area. I arched an eyebrow. Really? She gave a nod. We just reasoned that perhaps we could discuss anything. I silently let them in completely. We took a seat. The same sofa, the same stance, the same underlying tension. The facade of muffins and courteous excuses had been abandoned, but just this time, we are aware that tension arose. My dad started, year's understatement. However, we wanted to make things plain. We've come to understand the value of maintaining family ties, my mother stated, particularly given that the hook was present when you were performing so well. Her eyes gleamed with recognition rather than remorse. The headlines had finally reached her, or even a post on LinkedIn. Perhaps a buddy boasted that they knew me. They had not come to offer an apology. Their purpose was to renegotiate. She responded, beaming as though it were a praise. You're successful. Ava is also getting better. However, she requires assistance. She's looking for something fresh. Although it's difficult financially, your father and I are providing her with emotional support. We hoped my dad would step in until things settle. You could think about starting your monthly support again. Nothing significant, just enough to cover certain expenses and AVA's rent. As if it were a Netflix membership, he remarked. As if the drama would stop if I pressed a button. I gazed at both of them. Remember? Slowly, I said. They turned aside when Ava ordered me to avoid talking to anybody at the event. Remember how Mom told me I wasn't invited and to be quiet so I wouldn't bring any embarrassment to the family? Nothing has changed. I recall saying it quite vividly. My mother muttered, "People say things they don't mean." "No," I said. "Individuals express themselves clearly. Later on, they simply regret it." Silence fell. My dad then made another attempt. "We are related, Mira. Even if we make errors, we always work things out." I chuckled, but not too loudly. "Recognize that we don't. When you need something, you return." My mother parted her lips, then shut them again. "When I got into MIT, you weren't there. You weren't here when I first started my business. When I submitted my first wire transfer to pay off your mortgage, you weren't there. You arrived now." But I leaned forward. "Quiet." I further clarified that this has nothing to do with Eva's rent. It's all about your pride, your image, and your ability to boast that both of your daughters succeeded, without elaborating. At one point, you informed one of them that she was not invited to the celebration. I got up. "This is where we're done." They moved too slowly, firmly. My mother didn't cry, but her eyes were glistening. "Not at all." She said, "We didn't mean to hurt you. You had no intention of considering me," I said, "and you were successful." They chuckled. I didn't watch them go this time. I shut the door. I shut off the porch light and locked it. A reporter inquired about a profile of the Lexus executive team the following week. I said no. They made another offer. I declined because I didn't want my tale to be used as a motivational message about overcoming adversity. A title that read "From Forgotten to CEO" was not what I wanted. I was not overlooked. I was purposefully and repeatedly disregarded. The two are not the same. And in spite of them, I didn't get up. I stopped waiting for them, so I got up. Eva didn't get in touch again. Not right away. However, I noticed that her name kept coming up. She was attempting to rebrand while doing interviews. I was informed that she had once cited me. I chuckled. Did not take any action. Didn't halt her. Didn't get involved. Certain things break down on independently. I mentored 2 new project leads, signed off on contracts, and ultimately scheduled a week off for myself throughout the remainder of the quarter. I didn't send a holiday card or go see my folks. I traveled to Lisbon by myself. A quiet Airbnb was rented, ate pastries without talking, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to defend my peace, explain my accomplishment to others, or provide evidence that I was more valuable than a forgotten name on a family portrait. At last, it was sufficient that I was simply Mira Langston. Their numbers were never blocked by me. I didn't cause any trouble. I didn't make any internet posts. They never really showed up for me, so I simply stopped going. Walking away isn't always dramatic, it's just required. However, what are your thoughts? Was I too severe, or did I make the correct decision? Tell me in the comments below. Remember to subscribe if you would want to see more tales like this one.